Hi, this is John Reed of JohnERP.com. Catching me here on a Saturday afternoon shoot. Looks like I'll be doing some more videos this year, so feel free to send your questions. And you're probably going to be interested about some of the background that you see behind me, because I'm shooting them all at my office here in downtown Northampton. And there's probably some stuff on the wall that is intriguing, but you can't see all that well. Behind me, you may be able to see over this way a black frame that was given to me by the folks at ERP Tips back when I was running the SAP division there. And it's kind of a March Madness lineup of who I would end up marrying in the end. So I wish I could show you a closer view of it, but maybe someday I'll scan it in so you can see it. But today I wanted to talk about kind of an important topic, which is the changes in the SAP consulting world. I was thinking about the other day that software as a service has obviously had a huge impact on the ERP on-premise providers. There's no question that the cloud has really impacted all of them. I mean, you look at SAP rolling out its own Business by Design product, that shows you the degree of the importance SAP clearly places on how disruptive the SaaS world has been. And when you look at all the debates around ERP support and maintenance, that shows you the SaaS business model is really giving ERP buyers and purchasers a lot to think about, and all the vendors are taking note. And so that got me to thinking, when are we going to see the same type of reform on the consulting side? And I think we're going to start to see it. Now, I've done a much longer podcast on this topic about cutting out the consulting layers in my ERP Lounge series, which you can find on JohnERP.com. So I can't do that in this video because I just have a couple minutes left in the shoot. But if you want the full picture, check out the Cutting Through the Layers edition of that podcast series. But what I can tell you is that the internet many years ago made it possible for companies to hire SAP professionals directly without a middle person through job boards, and that continues, not just job boards, but LinkedIn and social networks. Companies hiring professionals directly through their HR departments. But what about the consulting world? Now, in the past, what we've seen is that the large systems integrators have relied upon smaller feeder firms to find experts that they don't have on staff. So the expert, the individual, is unfortunately faced with a situation where often they have to go through several layers to get to the project. And the problem with that is that it really hurts their rate. And that's frustrating for the person trying to hire them, the company where they'll be working, where sometimes they find out they can't afford the person they want, and they know they're getting marked up through all the layers, but they can't do anything about it. And it's really frustrating for the consultant because they want access to these projects, and they're suspicious of these layers. Now, layers aren't always bad. If you're going through one layer and you like how you're treated and they're advising you on the best rate negotiation and they're handling your insurance liabilities, well, that's a good layer to have. But sometimes layers add no value, and that it still mark up. And that's a real problem in the SAP consulting space. So people think, well, why can't the individual just go directly to a company? Well, in some cases you can, but in a lot of cases you can't, even with the internet. I've seen all these websites over the years crop up to try to do this, but the problem is that in most cases companies expect more third-party credibility than the individual can provide. This might relate to insurance that they might need on the liability side, or other kinds of vendor approval things the individual has a hard time handling. So great, if you can get hired directly, that's awesome. And sometimes they'll do it. And more companies, it seems, are trying it like on a W-2 hourly basis, because then you're more of an employee and they have less liability concerns. So maybe you can go direct in some cases. But we're also going to see a lot of reform, I think, and we haven't seen anything as disruptive and powerful as the SaaS providers have done on the ERP side. But we've seen some things. There are definitely some companies that are doing some interesting variations on how to cut through these layers and offer more value to customers. I have an advertiser on my site, ERPconsulting.com. They've got a really neat reverse auction product that makes it possible for consultants to bid directly on projects and get hired by hiring managers. And there is an intermediary that facilitates the deal once the agreement is made, but they only take a fixed percentage. It's very modest. It's not your typical 40 an hour markup, and it's only one layer. Then a former client and a friend in the market, Cumulus IQ, they've done some of that stuff they have a remote help desk in conjunction with the ERP Consulting Exchange, where they offer remote consulting services. And it's possible you can get hired by a firm like that to be part of their virtual lineup of experts, and maybe get more virtual consulting work. The rates might not be as good as on site, I don't know. It depends on the firm and how they've set it up, but that could be some good opportunities. There's another firm, Vivito Labs, that has an expert knowledge bank they're setting up, and there'll be a lot of options to work with Vivito as an expert, perhaps on spot consulting engagements, shorter term projects, or even virtual projects. So check out their website for more on that. So there are some different options that are cropping up. I don't think there's necessarily going to be one winning option, but what I do think is we're going to see a lot of this in the next few years as we finally see that the circumstances are right. The technology is there to facilitate these transactions. I think companies are ready for more staffing reform, and they want better value. They want experts at reasonable prices. And to do that, there's got to be a lot of reform in the marketplace for that to happen. So what I would recommend you do is to keep an eye, first of all, on my site, because I'm going to try to feature as many of these organizations as I can find, but also just keep your eyes peeled on the internet for interesting opportunities that might come your way where they're reducing the layers. But just make sure that however you're going to get access to those companies, that it seems like a credible way to do it, because sometimes some of these firms are just gathering resumes at this point and they don't have any opportunities yet to show you. So the trust factor is always there, and the systems integrators are still there too, and I think they still have a role to play. So I'm not saying they don't belong in the market. It's just that the good thing about doing business right now, it's a very tough economy, no doubt about it, but if you're being successful, it means you're offering value. That's what everyone expects. There's no room for BS. There's no room for bloated margins with no justification, and that's the world we're living in. So hopefully you can find your place in it, and if you have any questions, just find me at John Reed, johnerp.com.